My Hero Academia is hyped up as the new king of shonen and one of the best anime of all time, but it is not. My Hero Academia is your cliche shonen story, but even more so exaggerated. Tropes and cliches aren't bad to a certain extent, since nothing can be completely original. It matters on how well it is written, and is said writing has different attributes that make it different from other series with the same tropes. But this anime fails utterly. This is not exactly a review of My Hero Academia because I can only truly judge an anime officially if it has been finished or at least has been around long enough. I will simply be pointing out the flaws everyone else seems to be afraid of talking about. I guess you could call this a rant. My first point will be the premise of this anime. You see, in My Hero Academia, almost the entire population is filled with people who have superpowers, or how this try-hard series likes to call it, quirks. This is different from most other stories, where superpowered beings are a minority and thus more unique. In a world where practically everyone has powers, what makes those with powers any special? Rather, it becomes the opposite, and those without powers are seen as different. If you were born with powers in this world, you would be no different than someone who's born with two legs in our own world. Being born without powers in this world is the same as having a disability. My Hero Academia effectively undermined the magic of superpowers. This leads to another one of my points. This anime's definition of a hero. In My Hero Academia, if you have powers, you are automatically qualified to become a hero. It doesn't matter what your personality is or what your motivations are. If you have extraordinary abilities, which are the norm in this world by the way, you can become a hero regardless. Don't believe me? Look no further than Bakugo. His entire personality is that of a villain. He was a bully, arrogant, violent, and only wanted to be a hero because he wanted to be the best? What kind of reasoning is that? Not because he wanted to help people, or because he believes in All Might's ideology, which is something he claims to do, but he never reinforces it with his actions. Bakugo had the villain written all over him, yet he was allowed in UA. Even someone like Endeavor, who is a hero, a top hero at that, but he is someone who abused his wife and children and attempted to use his own son to fulfill his own selfish desire to surpass All Might, but he's still allowed and he's still seen as a great hero? What? The problem with this series is that the concept of a hero is lowered to a simple profession. It's no longer a responsibility one takes upon themselves. In real life, there are many occupations where you can do heroic things, like be a doctor, a surgeon, part of the military, or the police. But the thing about those is that you don't go to those jobs to be a hero, you simply do heroic things. But even then, those heroic things could also just be part of propaganda, especially if you're part of the military, because you may be a hero to some, but you also may be a villain to the eyes of your enemies and vice versa. But again, it doesn't matter if you are a good person as long as you do your job as a hero. It doesn't matter how much villainous tendencies or actions you commit on the side. So basically, something as sacred as being a hero is being destroyed in My Hero Academia. A hero is supposed to be a selfless person who puts others before themselves. But in My Hero Academia, anyone can be a hero, and the definition of a hero is basically changed to suit everyone's selfish desires. Heroes in any other medium, particularly in Marvel and DC, being a hero is seen as a responsibility one takes it upon themselves as it is in real life. In real life, anyone can be a hero through heroics and heroic actions, but it is not something anyone can simply label on themselves for doing something good. To be a hero, you must be able to put others before yourself and help them, even if it costs something of yours, whether it be time, money, or even your life. The definition of a hero isn't subject to such grand relativism. The show attempts to redefine the word hero to suit its own faulty premise, rather than what it actually is. In one episode, All Might, who is apparently the only hero that seems to matter narratively other than Deku himself, states that a hero is someone who leaps into danger without thinking, and quite honestly, that is the dumbest description of a hero. If you do something without thinking, it is no longer an action you take on your own free will and is no longer selfless. If you do something without thinking, it becomes an impulse, instinct. Jumping to save people, being selfless, and being a hero is not instinct. It no longer becomes brave. It no longer becomes something one does because they know it's right, or because they feel sympathy or empathy, but because they have devolved into a robotic droid whose only function is to perform heroic acts with no mind of their own. Also, the idea of jumping into danger without thinking is dangerous in itself. You don't see firefighters and police running into danger without thinking, because if they did, they might die themselves and end up being a casualty along with the very people they attempted to save. Ultimately, this anime is a poor adaptation on what it means to be a hero. Anyway, now that we have talked about the shitty premise, let us discuss the individual characters. Let us start with Bakugo, since we have talked about him previously. In addition to my previous points, Bakugo's other major flaw is that his personality is way too extreme. No one could possibly be that angry all the time without having mental stability issues. By now, with all that screaming he does, he should have died from high blood pressure or a stroke. There is literally a scene after he wins the sports festival where he disliked his victory over Todoroki and had to be chained up like he was an inmate at Arkham Asylum. Yes, that was probably for comedic purposes, but it wouldn't be out of his character, which is the problem. Some of my favorite characters are ones with superiority complexes, since I personally relate to them to a certain extent. But something about Bakugo seemed off. In a flashback where it showed Bakugo and Deku as children, Bakugo falls into some water and Deku, like a normal human being, offers his hand to help. And for some psychotic reason, Bakugo believes Deku was looking down on him and proceeded to bully him for the next few years of his life for the dumbest misunderstanding I have ever seen in any anime. It was that scene that eliminated any hope for me to believe Bakugo would be a deep character. He solely exists to be the rival to Deku because he is an asshole incarnate. His character does start to turn around slowly after his initial fight with Deku in Season 1, and realizing Todoroki surpassed him greatly. His superiority complex then became a way to hide his inferiority complex, Perhaps in the future he will stop screaming like a Black Ops 2 zombie, but that remains to be seen. Until then, if that even ever happens, he will remain a shit generic rival character. Now let's talk about the main character, Deku. He is a poor excuse for a protagonist. Deku to me is bland. He is good just because. He is selfless just because. He's a perfect, innocent, ideal, generic white knight boy scout wannabe bootleg Naruto shonen Superman. For no reason. Heroes need to be selfless, but as a human, you also must have selfish, per se, qualities to be considered relatable. There are no more layers to him other than herder, I wanna be like All Might could, for no other reason other than just because. Now you see, Deku isn't bland because he wants to be a good person. He's bland because he is just a good person and nothing deeper than that. He has no bad traits and is a perfect human being morally. That sucks. That really does. He only got bullied for not having powers, which became null and void when he got his quirk from All Might. If Deku still had no powers, and if he stayed getting bullied, then there would be something. But now that he has powers, the only hardship he ever faces is beating his opponents. That's it. He can't develop anymore as a character, and no, getting stronger is not character development. He is already selfless and an ideal hero. What else can he do to be more like All Might when he is already the same as him morally, but weaker physically? Deku's character development is non-existent, besides him getting stronger because of the power of plot. Deku is portrayed as the underdog when he is anything but. He literally inherited the strongest quirk, one for all, from All Might. Yet, he has to master it, but he will undeniably be the strongest by default. And I don't understand how Deku could want to be a hero so bad, but not do anything about it. He literally sat on his ass for years, doing nothing but taking notes, but never capitalizing or using them. If he didn't run into All Might that one day, he would have been working at McDonald's. Are you telling me someone who is apparently as smart as Deku couldn't invent some gadgets and be like Iron Man or Batman? And before someone says, oh, but he wouldn't be as strong as those with powers. Well, first off, who cares? He would have still been a hero. Second, there are some people in UA with useless quirks that technology could easily surpass. For example, Mineta, aka Grape Juice. And third, Mei Hatsume from the support course in UA had no powers, but with her gadgets, she was very notable in the obstacle course and saved Deku and the rest of her team's ass multiple times in the cavalry battle during the sports festival. So if she can do it, what is Deku's lazy excuse? Plus, he would have been so much more of an underdog with no powers. Imagine if when All Might told him that he couldn't be a hero without a quirk, instead of getting discouraged and accepting his place like a cock, he got determined and tried to prove the very person he admired wrong. That he didn't need one for all or any quirk to be a hero. He could have shown everyone, reminded everyone, that a hero can just be a person who tries to do the right thing. That a hero wasn't just someone with flashy powers or a cape, or someone who gives speeches of justice, hope and determination, but doesn't enforce it truly from their heart and actions. But no, he took one for all because without it, he would be nothing. What a dull, depressing shit narrative. People like to worship Deku and claim he is a refreshing shonen protagonist because he uses his brain